Hey all, so I am in the middle of making my July instrument for my patrons, and I literally I had to stop and record in the middle of making this instrument because I've created probably the coolest macro that I've ever made that I just needed to share it with you all right now. And hello, if you're new, my name is ZW. I'm an artist who makes music for video games, VR, the opera, to release my own electronic music, and I'm also an Ableton certified trainer, and on this channel I do a lot of cool sound design stuff like this. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. What I have set up here is a single macro knob that just allows me to take my sample instrument and pretty much cut it to half speed, as if it was recorded to tape and we played the tape in half speed and dropped everything down an octave. And then it has a range of extremity. It activates just a moment or two into the actual macro, and then the effect gets more extreme as it goes. Let me just play it for you. So let me pull open the mapping menu for this macro. And we're going to see we've got a couple of things. I've got a filter macro set up, and then I have an instance of spectral time set up. But then I've got this half speed set up where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 parameters mapped to a single macro. So I'm going to pull out of the mapping menu so that we can actually see what's happening here. When I pull back from it and I start to move the range of the macro, we're going to see a lot of movement, particularly on the pitch envelope happening here. And that is where a lot of the magic is. So with half speed and a tape, it drops the pitch by an octave. Now it's funny because I have the amount here set to plus 12, but that's because I'm using the initial and the sustain values to drop to negative 100. So I am effectively doing a reverse pitch envelope, but this is easier for me to work with conceptually than if I had, set this to negative 12 and put all of this to 100. I also think it's visually easier for you all to see what's happening here. Because if we think about an invisible middle line here set to 0, that is where our pitch actually is. When I bring this in, then we can see we're dropping everything. Think about it doing kind of this sort of sweep. If I bring the initial up to 0, we see where we actually start before dropping. And with the initial set to 0, it's a really, really extreme effect. What I'm doing here is I am modulating envelope values based on the number value of our macro here. So we can see as I bring the macro down, our envelopes start really small. What's effectively happening is when the pitch envelope gets engaged, the pitch is dropping down an octave. That is within, engaging the macro itself. Then what I'm doing is I am slowly increasing the amount of time it takes for the pitch to fluctuate up from negative 100 to initially negative 85, and at its max, negative 65, right? So it's truly as if we're jumping the pitch up by a major third, give or take. Up and then down, up and then down. Now it's looping because the pitch envelope in sampler can be looped, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And so then what's happening here is that as I am increasing the half speed knob, I'm actually decreasing the amount of time it takes for this pitch envelope to loop, which is why more of that fluttering happens. Let me play that for you. So even just at, 34 out of the 127 range of this macro, we're getting a little bit of that wow and flutter kind of tape effect. And the reason for that being is that our loop is now a lot shorter. And more explicitly, it's because we have a bit of a longer attack and decay time. Each of these are 50 milliseconds. Let's increase it to halfway. And again, longer attack and decay time. So literally the amount of time that it takes to create that pitch variation is longer. The loop is getting shorter, so we get more of it. Now you'll notice as we get to the extreme end of the macro range, the fluctuation rhythmically of these wows and flutters is just like not happening at a set steady rate comparative to earlier in the macro range. And the reason for that being is that I'm taking advantage of time to velocity, which pretty much dictates that the amount of time it takes for this to loop is dependent on the velocity of the incoming MIDI note. Now you'll see before sampler here, I have an instance of velocity set up. And velocity is set up so that as the macro increases, the randomization of the velocity of each individual incoming MIDI note increases as well. With this macro capped out, I'm going to play the sound again, and I'm going to A/B on and off velocity, so you're going to be able to hear the difference. So you can really hear almost immediately when I put velocity off, it's a consistent arc. Up, down, up, down, up, down, every 500 milliseconds. Now, a few other things then I am mapping to this half speed macro to really sell the effect. The spread is being mapped to it. I want each channel to get a little bit more detuned and out of sync with one another as this macro gets increased even further. Over to the filter global, I have the shaper on set to hard clipping, and then I have the drive slowly increasing from 3 to 9. So we get more fuzz, we get more saturation, all indicative of tape. Now, to compensate for that increase in distortion, I am turning down the volume of the instrument overall. I should also note too that I have volume to velocity set to about 10%, so that again, as we increase this randomization, we're also going to get fluctuations in the volume of each individual note as well. And then finally, in the modulation tab, I have LFO to set up to spin. That means that the left and the right channel of this stereo LFO never quite line up with one another. They are constantly chasing one another. And I have retrigger turned off for that explicit reason. It is doing a little bit of modulation for the filter frequency. Remember, this can go all the way up to 100. So that being set to 5 is only just a little bit. And it can go to 0.5 with the pitch. So it's adding, again, some more subtle pitch variation. And then I'm also playing with the rate. So it starts really quite slow and then really increases. And all of that taken together gives you this just like super awesome, incredible single macro. And it takes any sample instrument that you've built in Sampler and automatically turns it into something you've recorded to tape and dropped to half speed, which is just so rad. So that's all that I have for you today. This instrument is available to my artist tier patrons. It is your July instrument of the month. I give you one every single month, including all the other crazy awesome bonuses. And if you want to help sustain the channel, consider joining my Patreon. At the artist tier, you really help to sustain this work and you get all of my presets. And at the audience tier, you get additional bonuses, and it is really just an awesome way to support the work on this channel. But I'm glad you are here regardless, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Consider liking, subscribing, all that jazz. I know I've done my usual outro backwards here, but we'll all be okay. Till next time.